This is the 7th video in a series that is designed to help you give useful information to the Jehovah's Witnesses so that they can make an informed decision about their religious beliefs. This is intended to do for the witnesses what you would want done for you if you were a witness. Throughout this series, you must keep in mind the principles of Colossians 4, verses 5 and 6, and 1 Peter 3:15, and follow those principles, being gracious and respectful of their beliefs. You're studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses in their favorite publication, this book, What Does the Bible Really Teach? Reading each paragraph and giving your thoughts. This video series discusses only those issues that are in this book that are contrary to the mainstream evangelical community. In each video, I give you background information and then suggest what to say and what questions to ask. As you read the rest of their book, let the witness know that their explanation is acceptable within the mainstream evangelical community. You'll introduce each disputable issue by saying something like, I remember from chapter 1 in this book that I should ask questions and continue to search for answers because I want the truth from the Bible. So I have a question. There's an issue in this paragraph that I wish to understand better, but the way it's worded, I don't fully understand it, and my religious community would explain it differently. So I need your help to sort this out. The issue that we're talking about now is on page 42. Let's continue from 41 to 42, paragraph 12, where they discuss whether Jesus is the Almighty in any sense. They say no, and whether he's part of a Trinity. They say no. In giving this answer, there's a short answer and there's a long answer. I'm going to try and keep it within the 10 minutes because we can explain the Trinity as held by the current scholarship and historic Christianity in a few minutes. But the full explanation, I once taught a class at a Baptist church on the Trinity, and it took 13 hours. So we can't do that. So we're going to keep it short. I need to explain what the Trinity is and what it is not, because there is a lot of misunderstanding about that, because many churches don't see the pressing need to explain the doctrine of the Trinity and all its details. So, first of all, the doctrine of the Trinity and who Jesus is. I'm going to talk about the Trinity in a minute, but I need to explain what it is not. There is another view called modalism, where God is one person and expresses himself in three personalities, or personas. And sometimes one, two, or all three personalities at the same time, but this God is only one person. That's called modalism. That doctrine is held by a couple of churches, the United Pentecostal Church and the Apostolic Pentecostal Church. And if you were to call up someone, a representative of those churches, and you say, is Jesus God? They'd say yes. Is Jesus the Father? They'll say yes. Is Jesus the Holy Spirit? They'll say yes. Is God one person? They'll say yes. Then you say, oh, do you believe the Trinity? And you hold out the phone here because they're going to say very loudly, no. They don't believe in the Trinity. They often characterize it by saying Jesus only or the oneness theology. That's not the Trinity. They're not Trinitarians. They may use illustrations such as a man can be a father, a man would also be a son, and a husband, but he's only one. That's not an illustration of the Trinity. There's other illustrations, such as using water as a gas, as a solid, as a liquid, but that still is not a biblical illustration. It doesn't capture the concept. So I'm going to give you some biblical illustrations to show what the Trinity is. And here's what the Trinity is. Scholars and the historic doctrine of the Trinity is that would say that there are, and describe this as saying that the Bible shows there are three persons, three distinct persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They each have their own mind. They have their own thoughts. They constitute a person. They all share the same essential qualities that go with Godship. They are eternal. They are loving and wise. Primarily, they all created the universe. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit all made the known universe. and they share some essential characteristics. So they are distinct in persons, but they are one God. You say that's kind of odd. It's an odd concept. Well, it's actually in the Bible. I'm going to use an illustration, biblical illustration, to show this idea. In Mark chapter 10, verse 8, Jesus is talking about marriage and divorce, but he says that God's intent was for the man and woman, the Adam and Eve, to become one flesh. And then at the end of verse 8, Mark 10:8, he says they are no longer two. Now that does sound odd. That's Jesus' arithmetic. 1 and 1 make 1, because they are no longer two. If you look at Adam and Eve in the garden, you'd say there are two persons there. And yes, the persons are two, but Jesus says we are to think of them as one. Others are to relate to the couple as one unit, not as individuals, but as one. Yet there's still two persons there, distinct persons, each with their own mind. But the husband in the marriage relationship has a different function and role than the wife. Okay? Well, that concept is extended to the three persons of the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. The Father has a role. The Son has a distinct role, a different role. The Son is the mediator. And the Holy Spirit has a different function or role. Three persons, one God, each having their own function and role. Now that has been the historic definition and explanation of the Trinity. Whether you choose to believe that doctrine or not is up to you. But the witnesses want to study and challenge that here. And our response, in their response, it would be good to explain to them what the Trinity doctrine is so that they can understand it. Further explaining this view is that within the evangelical community that holds to the Trinity, there are two other distinctions, details, that are significant details, but are differences. One view is called the Complementarian View, and the other view is called the Egalitarian View. Currently, the two views, the Complementarian View is held by a majority of evangelical scholars, and the Egalitarian View is held by a minority. And which you hold to is your business. But if you're going to talk with Jehovah's Witnesses, you'll want to choose to discuss the Complementarian View by saying the Complementarian View is held by majority of evangelical scholars. Now, whether you personally believe that is a different issue. So it could, because to defend the egalitarian view is very difficult, and I cannot advise on how you would even do that. So I'm going to explain what those two views are. The complementarian view, and here's a little sentence you're going to memorize so that you can describe the complementarian view, is that the Son, Jesus, is a distinct person from the Father and eternally subordinate in rank to the Father. Okay? Jesus is a distinct person from the Father and eternally subordinate in rank to the Father. So he's a distinct person, his own mind, his own center of consciousness, if you will, and he is eternally subordinate. The Father is supreme in rank and position, and the Son and Holy Spirit are eternally subordinate. So if you wanted to represent this as a picture, you'd put the Father as a circle. Here's the Father, and he is here in supreme, in priority, and in rank. And the Son is here, and the Son is a person distinct from the Father, yet they overlap because they have the same essential qualities, but yet they have different function and role. And the Son is lower in subordinate rank, and is the Holy Spirit also. You draw a little circle. So all three circles intersect because they all share some essential qualities of being God, and yet they're distinct persons, each having their own intelligence and mind, and yet they are also subordinate, eternally subordinate. That is the complementarian view. The egalitarian view, as I said, is held by a minority of scholars, evangelical scholars, is that they are all equal in all ways, not just equal in the essential attributes of being God, but they're equal in rank. There is no subordination, possibly temporary subordination, but otherwise there is no subordination among the three. That's the egalitarian position, and as I said, that's the minority view. So that gives you some background